Hello. Hello, everybody. Brilliant. We've managed to get it work. Okay. Welcome. Welcome back. Um, these lessons, I'm doing them every single day, Monday through to Friday, and they are ideal if you are preparing for the 11 plus, if you are looking at SATs, if you are working on a foundation skills. So anyone really from year 3 all the way up to year 6, welcome. So hopefully you have visited, it's in the chat, the page where we are putting each of our homework classes. So it had a worksheet in there. That worksheet was about vocabulary and verbal reasoning, which is what we will be talking about today. Okay, so if you go and click on that link, you'll be able to see where we put the homework. We also put the past classes, so don't worry if you've missed one. If you're watching this on recap, you can go back. You can look at what we have covered every single day. But today is all about vocabulary and verbal reasoning. Now, it's a big topic, and it's all about reading. It's all about being able to take on words, understand them. And in our verbal reasoning and vocab classes, which we run during the term times, we also know that it is about being able to work out what a new word is. We look at prefixes. That's the little thing that goes before the word. We look at a suffix. That's the one that goes at the end. And then we look at the bits called root words. So that way, when you come across a new word, you can start to maybe work out what it can mean. This is really important when it comes to verbal reasoning, because no matter how many words, how many lists, how many different words you learn, there is always a new one out there. And that's what I think makes vocabulary so exciting. You can always discover a new word. And if you know your prefixes, your root words, and your suffixes, you might be able to work out what that word means. And that makes it really exciting for me because I'm always coming across new words, whether it's in a different language, whether it is in English. And sometimes, and I would highly recommend this if you are interested in vocab, I like to write them down in a little book. I don't just write the word, I like to write it in a sentence so that I know what it means. Now, you're listening to me and you're thinking, what has that got to do with verbal reasoning? Well, a lot of these words come up in verbal reasoning. Yes, common words come up, and it's the common ones that we're mostly dealing with today. And it's really about the strategy of the piece that we're dealing with today, rather than the really tricky questions. We're getting onto that next week. But what we need to do is we need to be able to use our knowledge of words to be able to work out why it's the odd one out, or what the synonym or antonym is. We need to be able to look at a word and maybe we don't fully know what it means, but we can try and work it out. So I'm going to try sharing my screen. Now, I know I did this from the previous class. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to come back and check. It looks like it has. Good. Okay. So here, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so that you can see it. I've given us the questions, and this is the questions that were on our worksheet. And you might look at these and think, that's really easy. I know how to do it. And that's great. But these classes are for people just starting out as well as people approaching 11 plus. And it's all about strategy. It's not about knowing all the words. It's about knowing exactly how to do everything. And even now, even as somebody who teaches vocab and verbal reasoning, I still do something called writing my meaning. And if you've joined my classes before, you will know that I do this to help future me. I'm always talking about future me. What do I mean? We're sitting there. We're doing a verbal reasoning paper. They're fast. We've got to write really quickly. We've got to make sure that we're picking the right answers. We can't afford any errors. And then I finish. And if I've been very quick and very clever and very organized, then I get to go back. Now, I can go back and do the whole question, but it's a lot easier if I can go back and I can check my working rather than checking my answer. Now, again, you might be saying, but Gemma, it's not maths. I'm not doing any working out, but you are. Let me show you it. This first question, from cat to kitten. And I'm looking this way, from cat to kitten, dog to. I'm drawing these little arrows to help me realize that I am going from one to the other. And I might just write myself a little note, older to younger. Obviously, I would write that rather than type it. But there is my note. That can help me in the future. Future me will be able to work out what I'm talking about, which is I'm going from the adult animal to the juvenile adult and the juvenile animal. So a cat has a baby kitten. A dog has a baby pup or baby puppy. And so that is why I've picked this answer. Now, again, I go, oh, but that's really easy. I'm never going to need to check it. And that's true. It's a lovely, easy example for us to start with. But we do get harder questions. And it's really nice to be able to go back, look very quickly, say, it takes me seconds to write that down, and it takes me seconds to check it. I don't have to do the question all again. Find the odd one out. Apple, mango, banana, carrot. Now, when it comes to odd ones out, I can be looking at categories of words. I could be looking at the letters in the words, the numbers of letters in the words. I could be looking at whole different things. Now here I can see fruits versus the one that is a vegetable. And again, I would just put in my answer, fruits. Now I wouldn't do this on the answer page because the answer page is just for my answers, just for checking those boxes. But I will put it on my question page because it helps me when I go back. So again, I can just say carrot, fruits. Oh yeah, that's not a carrot. Which pair of words are most similar in meaning? Okay, I have watched people do this for over 10 years. I have seen so many people get that similar and opposites completely mixed up. Even if it says similar and opposites, even if it doesn't say synonyms or antonyms. You've got to make sure that you're on the ball. You are not looking for what you thought the question could be. So many people, they'll read it and they'll go, oh, yes, antonyms done. No. Read that question, underline that question, make sure you know, because you've got to get every single mark you possibly can in something like verbal reasoning and vocab. Okay, so we're looking at most similar. At that point, I can go along and I can have a think about what most similar is. Well, heavy is the opposite of light, begin is the opposite of end. Silent and quiet, those are similar. And I can check. I love a bit of checking. It's really nice. It helps me to know I've got the right answer. It means that I can leave the exam feeling really good about myself. And that usually helps me with the next one. So I would put it in a sentence, okay? The classroom was oddly silent. The classroom was oddly quiet. The librarian told me to be silent. The librarian told me to be quiet. Those all make sense. I'm not going to write them down. It would take me too long. But if I can start to think about them in my head, I will be able to work out, does that mean the same thing? Okay, next one. Number 4 is a code. Okay, so I want to know how to get from R over here, from E over here. Can you see this drawing it all over the place? It's going to look horrible. And I might rub it out, and that's going to take time. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it elsewhere. Because I don't want to be following all these lines. I don't want to be accidentally drawing into the word and then I can't read it properly. I'm just going to draw it out, and I'm going to draw it out differently. R, E, A, D, and then straight underneath S, F, B, and Q. Okay, so QRS plus 1. E to F, EF plus 1. Now, what do I mean by plus 1? I mean I'm going one along in the alphabet. Now, if it was more complicated, I might write the whole alphabet out at the bottom. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I'd write it all out. Sometimes they give it to you. And I would look at where I'm going. So if I'm moving from E to F, we can see I've moved 1 that way. And I'm counting that way as plus. So R to S, E to F, A to B. That D to G is a little bit unusual. I won't lie. It's a bit strange. But do I need it? No. If I look down here, I look down at my answers. I only need the first 3 letters. I don't actually need the last letter because they're all so different that actually it won't matter. I'm going to, again, just for future me, you might be sitting here knowing exactly what the answer is, but I'm going to write it again, nice and clear, and I'm going to write my code underneath because sometimes they'll give me the code and they'll ask for the word, and that means I have to go backwards. And this is just a nice way of me making sure I'm going the right way. So if I had to go from the code back to the word, I'd need to minus 1, move 1 that way. But instead, I am going to the code, so I'm plussing 1. So B plus 1 gives me C. Element OP. Oh, that's unusual. P, there's P. Oh, and it's a double letter. There we are, element OP. Okay, I can look back at my answer. There is only one of those. I don't need to worry about the K because all of the other letters fit. There is not a single other answer that it could be. I have saved myself, yes, I've saved myself seconds, but seconds over time count as questions. Okay, and our last one here, which 2 words are opposite in meaning? Again, I've underlined opposite to make sure that I've recognized my brain hasn't just thought question 3 was similar, question 5, that's also similar. Nuh-uh. I'm going to do opposites. Okay, so cold and freezing mean the same thing. Kind and mean do not mean the same thing. Now, despite the fact that I have marked that question, I'm still going to look at the other 2 because what if it is something that I've misread or I think they're opposites, but maybe they're not quite opposites? I'm going to keep going. To run and to jog. Well, I can jog along a track and run along a track. So those are not small, tiny. You can talk about a tiny little puppy or a small puppy. Okay, so I think kind and mean makes sense. So hopefully you have been able to see the way that we work with verbal reasoning. And you can see there's lots and lots of notes there. They won't be on the answer sheet, they'll be on the question sheet. But they're there to help future me. Yes, future me, exactly. And future me really likes notes because, let me look at how I check. Cat, kitten, dog, older, younger, right, pup, done. Odd one out, said they were all fruit, vegetable, yes. Most similar in meaning, silent and quiet, yes. Read R, it's this one. So I went from R to S plus 1, from E to F plus 1. Okay, so B to C plus 1, O to P plus 1. Opposites in meaning, cold, freezing, same, kind, mean, opposite. That takes seconds. But it ensures you get the right answer. All right, guys. Thank you for taking part in my live lesson. It's been great to see people joining. Please do take a look at that website. It's in the chat, it's there. And this is where the next day's homework will be added. Homework will be added here. And if you take a look, there is also a paper. We're going to be going over that paper on Friday. So you can have a go at that paper and I'll be pulling out questions that I think are worth discussing, the slightly more tricky ones, and I'll be doing that on Friday. All right. So thanks ever so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.